Well, hello and welcome to another episode on our Tribulation Soldier COMS YouTube and Facebook. And at the moment, I'm just sharing a few videos about our pastoral background, our experiences with the church and so on, and obviously leading up to the online. And there's quite a lot in it. I'm trying my best to be as brief as I can. And I always hope this is something people don't find quite boring. I know that the big sermons and the teachings and all that sort of stuff, are quite exciting and so on. But this is really important just now, that anyone who really listens to what we've got to say or anything like that knows our background, knows all the good things, the bad things, how we're trained, who we're trained by, all these different things. And just hugely important. But for now, guys, please don't forget to like, subscribe and hit notifications. We'll obviously be sharing a lot of teachings this year. I'll be doing a lot of sermons and prayer videos and all sorts of stuff, So if you don't want to miss any of that, just hit the notifications bell, that'd be awesome. Yeah, so I've just been explaining our sort of past, as it were, and like I said in the previous video, I'm kind of splitting this into maybe three phases. 2002 to 2009 was a real training period where we were in that we're cell church pastors. This one tonight, I'm going to share about the youth work that we did. That was from 2009 to 2012, and we'll tag on to that the assistant pastor role just after that, And I'll just share through it very quickly, guys. Yeah, so the youth pastor role, when that came along, it was a dream come true, and people dream of being actresses or actors, millionaires, Formula One drivers. My dream was to pastor, to stand up, preach, teach, be with people, help people. That's me, that's just who I was, and I got my chance. It was just amazing. I'd had ulcerative colitis, and the 4 years before that were filled with operations and various procedures and tablets and treatments and just about everything, and probably just before the youth we had this tremendous period of sort of healing, But anyway, we got to that stage where we were actually appointed the youth and young adult pastors of our local church. So we actually had quite a large youth group. It grew into quite a large youth group as well, into a very exciting youth group. Very busy, very, very busy. At this point, this is before David and Emily came along. I'll share about that just a little bit later. But me and Sharon were still both working full-time jobs, and Sharon was running a project for adults with learning disabilities. And I worked as a heating designer as part of a local builders merchant. But we didn't have any sort of young kids in the family or anything like that, so we didn't have a huge amount of responsibility, and again, a wee bit more money as well, so it was a lot easier doing that ministry. But we had a great youth group, and I struggled to pick any fault with it, I really do. It was just such a tremendous time. I think a lot of that was, that healing, coming out of that season of ulcerative colitis. But I've always just said, that when it came to that youth work, it just seemed like all the conditions were right, The church was in the right place for something like that, We had really gifted, experienced young folk in their early teens that knew God, who'd experienced God, and there were kids. I struggle to say kids because I could rely on them for the help. So it wasn't just me and Sharon pastor and the youth. We had this sort of little group of elder Christians too that really knew what we were doing, and it blossomed. We saw kids saved, we saw kids baptized, many sort of social events, every second Saturday night the kids were around here, and they'd take over the downstairs of the house, and me and Sharon just got way upstairs and leave them to it, sort of thing. And we had a Thursday night youth cafe, which was awesome. It was a place where they could bring friends and so on, and we did it as a thing where we had a meal, make a meal and have a meal together, and then it was pool and playing pool and all that sort of stuff afterwards. We hosted a lot of our own events as well, which was really cool, and we travelled around Scotland to various big youth events, the old 3 or 4 day jobs and that, and Sharon and I just still look back on it and just tremendous. I struggled to say there was a struggle, it was just so good. Really enjoyed it, And of course with that, the youth and young adults is part of the broader church as well, So being the youth pastor, I still had to, preach on Sunday mornings at times and take various meetings and stuff like that with the adults. That was always all part of it. And we'd host a few nights for adults as well, and do some ministry and praying for people and really try to get to the root of some issues and problems and in their lives, and just really, really good. It was just such a sweet time. But it was during that time where the online stuff really started now becoming side by side with our local church work, And I can always remember at the time, guys, I'm not kidding you. Of course, now that I was the youth pastor, I knew about the finances of the church, the real issues that were going on, the various different things, that were really had to be dealt with within that, And there was one day we found that we were going to struggle to pay our rent at the end of the month, And I was like, what? What do you mean? What? I didn't realise that churches kind of got into this situation, or our one anyway. But they was getting to that situation for whatever, the reasons were at the time. And my immediate response to that was, what about my youth? What about my kids? And I almost freaked, almost kind of freaked, and I was really looking at God saying, well, hold on a second. Could you imagine when you've got a group like that is so good and it could be destroyed if we lost the building or something like that happened, And to me, that was just awful. So things kind of started going side by side. I never realised it at the time. But early in that youth ministry, I'd been given my opportunity to do a 10-week preaching season on Sunday nights for adults. And of course, the youth were a part of it as well. So we held this event. It was called the Back to Basics, which is the first principles of the oracles of God, real doctrinal teachings. Afterward, the discussions in smaller groups. And then after that was real ministry, some sweet nights, really, really sweet nights. And we'd recorded all that. And of course, this was back like 2010, so we weren't really filming stuff back then like we do today. But we did record it, which I've got the recordings of it. And someone had said, you've really got to move further forward with this. You've got to make these into ebooks. And I'd never really heard of ebooks at the time. I was just starting to see Facebook coming through and YouTube and Twitter, and wasn't really sure what all that was about and so on, But when I saw that, I saw this opportunity that I thought I could really put us into the position where we didn't have that kind of financial concerns and the kids would be safe. So I created a couple of ebooks with audio sermons from those evenings, and put them online, got a website up as well. And I really put that in place, and I thought, this is going to be our safeguard, and that's really why I did it to begin with, Part of it, of course, the big part of it, of course, was that, these teachings were just phenomenal to me, the doctrine, God's word, such a passion for it, and I couldn't, I'm just sort of talking the way I'm talking just now because I'm explaining, but when you're out preaching and really giving it, it was just awesome, But as it turned out, we didn't lose the building, we didn't lose the church, I suppose it was a bit immature in a way. I think my heart was obviously in the right place, But that gave way to the Christian Back to Basics, and it really began my sort of online life, as it were, And like I said, from the youth through the assistant pastor and then going on from that, the online stuff really went that way. And I really started developing it over that period. As always like to share that I never sort of see these stages as stepping stones in my career. When I was doing the youth work, that was it for me. I really thought that was it for me. I found my calling. I enjoy it. Kids are so much fun, away in camp and holidays with a caravan, and just having a lot of fun. In a lot of ways, they really brought me out of my shell as a person. They changed me in a big way. Obviously in churches you're all very close. You're all quite emotionally close. A few of the kids in the group I had known since they were really little, and of course back then I wasn't really like a cuddly person. And that in churches people tend to hug a lot and various things like that. I wasn't really like that. But the youth really brought that out in me, and they provided a lot of healing for myself and for Sharon. Those surgeries had went pretty wrong, at that point in our lives, and it was a huge recovery period. you know, and it just was what it was. But boy, I thought I'd find my call, and I was going to do youth work, and that was it for the rest of the days. I really thought that. But as always, things move on, you know, and sometimes you don't want them to. And our sort of stepping down from the youth was really something that was a decision that was taken out of our hands. We'll go into that another day, because we could talk about that for quite a while as well, actually. But it did come at a point when a promise was really fulfilled. You know, God said to Sharon in 2002, to her personally, that we're going to have children, and it was kind of backed up as well. We're going to have two, and of course we've been trying for kids for ages, and you know, nothing. And you know, even right up till 2010 and so on, you know, we just thought, well, if we have kids, we have kids. If we don't, we don't. And of course, sort of the last, I think, 6 months of the youth, that was it. Sharon had Emily, and it was just tremendous. You know, Emily was actually part of the youth, you know, as a wee one, and David was part of it as well, but he was in mummy's belly, you know. But yeah, the decision was kind of taken out of our hands to step down from the youth and so on. And again, we'll go into that another day. But life had obviously really changed for us. And anyone who has children will know that it's just such a change in your life. I mean, the first time I saw Emily, first time I saw David, your whole outlook changes. You know, your responsibilities suddenly change, and it's just an amazing time, you know. I mean, it really, really is. So with that kind of decision taken out of our hands, it's you're back to what most Christians do, is they look to the Lord and say, right, Lord, you know, what's next? What do we do? Where do we go? And God actually directed us to a church, a smaller church that was more local to us, closer to the house actually, to move forward and be the assistant pastor in that place. And it was a really small church, you know, and I really got the feeling very early that my role there was going to be mainly just teaching and preaching, you know, 90% teaching and preaching, 10% ministry and doing all those things. But, you know, having David and Emily, it was a lot more difficult. And it has to be said, you know, with the youth, it would have been easier having David and Emily with the youth, you know, the relationships we had and the trust and so on, you know, that would have been having David and Emily and doing the youth would have been a piece of cake actually. But it was different in the adult groups, you know, and the little church didn't really have a youth at all, really, you know. So that there I was teaching and preaching, you know, and I think God during that time, I mean, you're there to bless people, you know, and I'm not really sure how many others do it, but the way I always looked at a morning preaching and teaching was that I didn't know what the needs were that day. I needed God to impress upon me the message that needed to be shared, or the teaching that needed to be shared, things that need to be said, or whatever, you know. And generally, you know, that's sort of the way God did things. And I'd find that ever since I'd started preaching in 2009, you know, that I would just go with it, you know. Rarely use notes, not really so interested in notes. I'd much rather just sort of sense where God's taking you. And during that time, I was really put to the test. I hate the word test, but it was an exercise. It was an exercise, you know. But there was times where I'd get the message I was going to share late on a Saturday night, Saturday morning. There's times I got it on the Sunday morning. There's times I got it when I was out for a walk with the dog. I'd even been times when I got the message during worship before my time to preach. There was a time I was actually walking to the front to go and preach, and I just got the message there, you know, started preaching. There's a time where I stood up and got the message, you know, and God really showed me, you know, he really proved to me that he could do that. It wasn't really about my ability to preach and teach like that. It was about his ability to impress that upon me to share the message. And of course, when it happens like that, you get a great confirmation within yourself, and you think, wow, this is really something God wants to share. And the passion comes from that, you know, and the joy, the passion, the forcefulness, and the noise, the hand gestures, and everything, you know, it just comes from that. So of course, during this time, you know, we're having our new lives with David and Emily. And I'm not going to say it wasn't easy as such, but it was a magical time, you know. I've just found it to be like nothing else. It was just amazing. Still is amazing. You know, you see David and Emily today. But, you know, there's a lot to learn, you know, and obviously, you know, we I think Sharon was on maternity leave, but I still had a full-time job as well. So it was a few sleepless nights, and it just wasn't easy. You parents will know that whole period. But of course, once the wee ones start getting a little bit more mobile and start being able to communicate a bit more and stuff like that, it starts to get easier again. And not to say that the months before that are just awesome. Their first smile and all that sort of stuff, and noises and the way they look at you and all these different things. Just really good. I'd have to share about this another day. That was a whole new journey. But really, during that time, I was at home a lot. And this really gave me the opportunity to really expand online. And go forward with the Tribulation Soldier, which again I'll share about a bit later. Because I'm moving from teaching ebooks to the fiction, which was really cool, and I could sort of focus a bit more on that. There's also during that period though where I'd always had a major burden for people to find Jesus, in our area, and it was really big for me ever since 2002. That was really, really big for me. And for those of you watching that may not be Christians, maybe you're a new Christian, this kind of burden is that you just so want to see people come to Jesus, your friends, your family. And at times, it's kind of even been like that for me lately, actually, believe it or not. But, back then it was just this huge burden. We had to reach people. So got together with a few of us, just here in the house as a home church. It's all sanctioned by the church we were a part of, was to really seek God, really, really look to God and pray and look to Him and pray and look to Him, and pray and pray and pray. Had some great nights together. We really did. Very close. My mum was actually a part of it. But, being part of that home church, it wasn't like cell church like it was before. This is a real home church. This is something quite intimate, and the people in the room were very, very focused towards this. It's not every Christian's thing, to have that level of a burden. But when you've got a few people in a room that do have that, it's very spectacular, really, really good. But just after that, you want life to change again. I think it was about 2017. And I fell really ill in 2017 again. And weren't sure what it was for quite a while, And it just was what it was. I'd been through this stuff, ulcerative colitis before. But as it turned out, I had a hernia. And it was, my colostomy bag's right here. The hernia was right beside it. And the hernia had pushed through. Those of you with hernias know they're pretty painful. Make you feel sick and nauseous and all sorts of things. And I went in for that surgery in 2017. They nicked my large bowel. They nicked my bowel. And closed me back up again. And ended up going septic. A day or two later, they had to rush me in for emergency surgery. I was almost away. I was almost dead. And then when I woke up, I had a great big 6-inch wound, a really big one. I don't think I'll ever share that on social media. It's pretty grim, the size of the thing. And I had this huge open wound for about 7 months, and I had to be on antibiotics every day. I think that stuff they put in you, the gentamicin, that real serious stuff that just makes you sweat straight away, and it's like bleach. It's really quite something. But that mistake had been made. So end of 2018, it was time for that. It's time for surgery again. And this time they made a mistake again, and I ended up on a breathing machine, like I've mentioned in previous. I've lost 2.5 weeks of my life. I can't remember what happened or anything like that. I just woke up in intensive care in the big hospital 2.5 weeks later, and I had no idea what had happened. And it's taken from then till about now, where I still struggle a bit, to concentrate, and sometimes you hear me stutter a bit. It's just trying to really work it, but I'm getting there. I'm getting better. But that took a long, long time to recover from, But that sort of time essentially almost ended our local church role, whatever our local church roles were, that really kind of ended that, And now the online stuff was now standing by itself, And in that, I dropped down from Of course, this was just before surgeries and whatnot. I stepped down from full-time work to part-time work just so I could do more online stuff and really push forward with the Tribulation Soldier and all the online things that we were doing. The local stuff was always good, you know, and hopefully you can see throughout these testimonies that it's not like stepping up, that's not really the word, it's moving forward, you know. You have to move on as well. You have to move on to give other people a chance to come in. You know, you can't sit in the same position all the time. You know, younger people have got to come in and move forward. You need that fresh blood and so on. And this just seems to be the path that God took us, you know. A lot of local church experience, very heavy in doctrine, a lot with counselling, ministering to people, you know, really looking at God to heal people and various things like that. A lot of the spectacular stuff as well, you know, the prophecy, dreams. I'll get into all that at, you know, some other time. That's not for this message. But that's what we did. We just seemed to progress through that. And of course, with that, you know, just everything goes side by side, you know, your work life, you know, the kids, you know, the different things that happen. And of course, my two major things were, you know, the ulcerative colitis, back 2004 for that wee while. And then obviously, probably the still more recent, which is still fresh in my mind, even though it was 4 years ago, was that hospital time too, you know. But that leads me very well on to this next phase now, you know, where it's really purely online, you know, moving on to being an online pastor. And I'll share about that in the next one, you know. Yeah, so in this one, guys, I really tried to get through as much of this as I could, as almost as quickly as I could, and it's still like 24 minutes I can see, you know. So I'm really trying my best, you know. But yeah, I just hope you really enjoy. I hope you sort of see where we've come from, what we've went through, you know, various things like that. I'll share about all the bigger stuff in the future, you know, especially about the things I mentioned earlier. You know, we'll get into all of that another day, you know, it's no problem at all. But, you know, guys, there are a lot of false teachers in the world. There always will be. There's a lot of people who really shouldn't be doing what they're doing. There's a lot of people that are unqualified. There's people that are not authorised to be preaching and teaching. So it's very, very important, guys, that I prove myself up, prove me and Sharon, our family, to you, so you can have confidence in that. So as always, guys, we are YouTubers, obviously, you know, so please don't forget to like, subscribe and hit notifications. We've obviously got our Birnie Family channels, and 3 channels for kids called Birnie Family Fun, and with our shorty shorts and our Damon, that's Damon Lemley, and our Birnie Family channel. And we've also just been developing our Birnie Family Live from in here, you know, we're really moving forward with that as well, you know, so things are really moving along, you know, just really cool. So we just really hope you enjoy all those channels. But for now, guys, I might use this as my catchphrase, I'm not sure, but we'll always be here. So God bless you.